Humanizing reality is unnecessary. Professor George Honest once stated, "Cloning of a human being is intuitively and properly viewed with almost uniform horror, because replication of a human by cloning would radically alter the very definition of what a human being is. Every human, whether alive or soon to be alive, should have a voice. Human cloning is an uprising, controversial matter. Going through this process in the United States will not only affect the lives of American citizens, but also the lives of every human on the face of the earth. Human cloning should be illegal throughout the United States because it is morally incorrect, it could result in death and high risk, and it is unnecessary. Human cloning is the implanting of deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, from one organism into an egg whose nucleus has been removed. After being manipulated, the egg acts as though fertilized and begins to develop into a second life with the same DNA as the first. The three types of cloning are reproductive cloning, therapeutic cloning, and basic research. Researchers have cloned genes, cells, tissues, and even organisms. This idea initially arose when the first ever mammal was cloned from an adult somatic cell. A somatic cell is any cell of a living organism other than the reproductive cells. Dolly was a female sheep, and it took 276 tries to create her from a 6-year-old sheep. This means that there were 275 failed attempts and deaths to create one organism. Is a clone of an animal really worth killing so many embryos? Some people say yes because it is for research. But is it really research if the outcome does not have any positive effects? There is a such thing as natural clones. This would be something that occurs in humans and other mammals. An example would be identical twins. These types of twins are produced when a fertilized egg splits and two embryos carry almost identical DNA. They have nearly the same genetic makeup but different makeups from their parents. Bacteria also produce genetically identical offspring through the process of asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is the creation of a new organism from a single cell of one parent. Why can Americans not stick to the cloning that occurs naturally rather than fooling around with live subjects? There are many extreme side effects of human cloning. This subject is still very understudied and can result in stillbirths and sudden deaths. It could also lead to miscarriages, abortions, and many deformed babies. Most of the animal embryos tested on died before reaching full term. The ones that did live carried genetic abnormalities which weakened their system and made them more susceptible to diseases. Many ethicists believe that human cloning should not be banned, but strict regulations should be enforced. This would be inefficient, mostly due to the fact that people do not follow regulations properly. Human cloning should be totally illegal in the United States. The Nuremberg Code states, regardless of the good that might be produced by such experiments, the experiments are of their very nature an immoral use of human beings, and justify the opprobrium of the civilized war. Again, this is stating that whether someone thinks that human cloning is going to bring positive components to themselves or even the world, it is a very immoral use of humans. It sends off a message that humans are objects and are not to be respected. Human cloning is a waste of time and resources. Aside from the effects, human cloning is also quite unethical. Many people would like to replace a loved one or allow same-sex marriages to have children rather than adopting. Another arising theory is that human cloning will recreate gifted individuals, but what makes someone gifted? Many anti-abortion groups, along with the Catholic Church and Vatican, are against using human embryos as research. The Holy See firmly supports a worldwide and comprehensive ban on cloning, no matter what techniques and what aims are pursued. There are countless ways to research embryonic cells for better, more ethical purposes. If the unborn babies had a voice, they would want to be protected from death. However, the Holy See does support research on postnatal embryos because it is a reasonable way to learn about tissue transplants and cell therapy. Every different type of research on live embryos should be illegal, even if it is a patient needing a transplant, a new body part, or any other medical issues. A baby, even when he or she is still inside of their mother, is living. Performing experiments on a live human is in fact murder. As stated earlier, the Vatican does support research on the cells that have passed away, which is a compromise for human cell research. There is no reason that human cell research on a non-active cell should be less effective than human research on an alive, immature cell. This is because human cloning should not be a type of research conducted in the United States, period. In addition, cloning has been attempted in many other countries. Britain, Denmark, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Spain have all banned human cloning. There is a clear reasoning for this. Hundreds of thousands of embryo deaths, along with the death of the organism being acted upon, has occurred from this process. Yes, some medical discoveries have been made, but how is human cloning going to better the earth? The answer is it is not. There are other ways to cure deathly illnesses that are less time-consuming and more cost-efficient. The money spent on this type of research has gone through the roof over the past 20 years. Instead of spending money on unnecessary research, why not put American brains together and think of more ethical ways to make extreme illnesses curable? Scientist Leon Kass also stated many other countries have already banned human cloning, and there are efforts at the UN to make such a ban universal. That brings up the question, why would there be efforts to ban human cloning universally? Well, as stated earlier, there have been many tests on animals that have gone south. People may ask, how is this different than animal testing? Animal cloning would be considered a type of animal testing or a type of animal research. However, when you bring these ideas to test on human subjects when the concept is still very understudied, that becomes an issue. Human lives are superior to animal lives. That statement does not mean that animal cloning should be a thing. It just means that humans should not be the guinea pigs of cloning experiments. Americans are making humans, alive or soon to be alive, into objects and putting them through life-threatening processes because they are afraid of dying and having their loved ones pass away. This should be illegal and frankly unwanted by the people of the United States. In conclusion, human cloning should be forbidden throughout the United States because it is unethical, it causes mass deaths, and it is very unnecessary. As stated earlier, everyone should not only have a voice, but they should also be heard. Experimentation on live human embryos should not be allowed. The embryo needs to develop into a fetus and then be birthed as a baby. When acted upon, the embryo is still in its first weeks of development and is very susceptible to genetic abnormalities. As is, embryos already have a chance of diseases. Experimenting on them just adds to the fact and increases the chance of a miscarriage or the chance of stillbirth, which brings up the next point. There are way too many downsides to this research. To conduct a good experiment, there should be positive, useful factors that better our world as a whole. Otherwise, the experiment is unnecessary. This type of research should not be legally conducted in the United States. Thus, the question arises, how important is one human being to another? This will lead an individual to ask themselves, what is a human being?